you manage people in some sort of organization, the topic that I'm going to do today is, which is understanding team dynamics at work or in your organization, I think will be very pertinent. So get something to write with and let's go to town here. First, I'm going to start off with a story. Many, many years ago, around 40 something years ago, I had a practice and I'd opened up my practice and I had a lady named Lois who was at my office at 7 o'clock in the morning. We didn't open till 8, but she was there. She come in early and I gave her a key. She came in early and she opened up the hot packs and got my clinic ready and got everything organized and made sure all the rooms are ready. She really did, went out of her way. She didn't have any kids. She just focused on work. She loved working for the organization. And then after I would do my practice all day long, I would do seminar at night. I would do a class and she would stay there sometimes till 10:30 at night. So she was sometimes coming in at 7 in the morning and going till 10:30 at night and closing it all up. She was really dedicated to her work, and I was a bit kind of, I made this kind of infatuation with her uh, ability to work so hard. I kind of wished everybody was like that, right? And but I noticed that as I was kind of liking that, I ended up having somebody in my insurance department named Bonnie, who was a lovely lady, but she would sit in her car until 7:59 and walk in the door at 8 o'clock. And then she would end up walking out. I mean, it was like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. At 6 o'clock at night, she walked out of the door. She did not give me 1 second more than the time allotted. And she gave great work. She did everything else, but she gave only the time. So I had an overworker, and because of the comparison, because I was infatuated with her, I had somewhat what I was thinking is an underworker. The real truth is she was an underworker, but I perceived her that way, comparing it by the law of contrast. So the more I was infatuated with the work ethic of this other lady, the more I was kind of frustrated by the Bonnie. And what was interesting is Lois was friendly with everybody, could talk to everybody, and Bonnie was kind of an inclusive, an introvert, kind of sitting and doing insurance and doing math during the day. She didn't want to talk to anybody. So you had these two different opposite personalities, two different opposite approaches to work, and I found myself sort of elated with one and then resentful to the other. I didn't want to admit that, but it was there. It was underlying because I was expecting, dedication. I was dedicated, putting in crazy hours, so I expected these people to do the same. Why not do the same? I realized later how important values were. I mean, I understood values, but I really saw how valuable when somebody feels their values are supported, they're engaged. When their values are less supported, they're less engaged. But I also learned something new from that because one time the Lois who was sitting there doing all those hours started having a health problem. And as a result of it, I told her, I said, I want you to go and just take today off and just, I'll have something else being done. We'll close up at a certain time. We'll make sure it's done. Just go and take care of your health. And the moment she did, for about a week, I gave her kind of I told her, don't come in early. Don't stay late. Just take the hours. She didn't really want to do that, but I could see that it was running her down. She wasn't getting great sleep some nights. So when I told her to do that, mysteriously, Bonnie said, we're behind on some insurance paperwork. I hope you don't mind, but I'd like to stay late. You don't have to pay me overtime or anything else. All of a sudden, she kicked into gear and started having a willingness to work later. She didn't come in earlier, but she worked later. And I thought, well, that's interesting. If I'm shutting down this person over here and this person's now picking it up, is there something going on that's a higher ordered system that I'm missing here? And I realized that in a business organization, within the teams, because this is a team that was working in the company, there were complementary opposites, pairs of opposites. And if you relate with one, you tend to resent the other. If you infatuate with somebody that overworks, you'll resent the person that underworks. So what I did is I started to becoming aware of the downsides of Lois. I found out that Lois was talking more and the productivity per minute was actually less than Bonnie, who talked less. Bonnie actually got just as much done, if not more done during the day without all the talk and within less hours. So she was actually more efficient. And I calmed down my infatuation with Lois and I kind of calmed down my resentment with Bonnie. I started seeing the benefits of Bonnie and the drawbacks of Lois as overworking, and I brought them back into balance. So I wasn't looking up to one and looking down on the other. And then an amazing thing happened. Lois started being more reasonable and being more productive, and Bonnie started to go and do more actions over hours. And it was like they came to kind of a midpoint the moment I stopped infatuating and resenting with them. And I thought, well, that's amazing. Is there a possibility of that? So I then looked for other opposites. I found that some were more extroverted and some were more introverted. Some were more detail oriented and some were more people oriented. And I looked for pairs of opposites, and I started to calm down and balance out the pros and cons of both of them. And I watched the stability of my team stabilize. It was amazing. Instead of the gyration that I had to micromanage all the time, there was stability and there were people there. And I realized how important it is to hire somebody that is actually engaged in their work, that's highest on their value, because they're more stable. And if I do that, I've got more stability, more consistency, more reliability in my productivity. Well, I realized that if I get elated with one pull, I breathe the other pull. I came across a book by a management specialist called Deming, who's the one that helped, management in Japan at the time when Japan was really taking off back in the 80s and things. And Edward Deming talked about this same mechanism. He talked about these pairs of opposites. And so when I read that, I go, my God, that's what I discovered kind of serendipitously in my business. So I just want you to know that in your business or any organization, you're going to have a culture and counterculture, an individual with a set of traits and opposite traits. The summation of all the traits, the summation of all the values create an androgynous balance within the company. If you have somebody that's work that has no kids, you have somebody else that's got kids and they just basically do it and they focus on their kids. You need a balance of the masculine and feminine, or the testosterone and an estrogen, to make a company grow and to make an organization grow, even within yourself. The more you're living by your highest values, the more you hire people that are engaged and able to do what they love in their highest values, the more stable that is, the more productive, engaged that business is. But the second they are not fulfilled and you hire people that aren't inspired, and you're not inspired, and you're not delegating lower priority things and sticking to higher priority things, the more wobbly you are, and the more you have wobbles in your business between the pairs of opposites. The more you go in your amygdala and infatuate with one side and resent the other. So whatever you like in your office and you see people that you do things that you like, find also the downsides. I ended up going on into a company that was in Florida that was involved in website development back in the early 90s, very beginning of the 90s, when everybody had to have a website. And we had a person that was the overseller. She was just selling, I mean, literally 10 times anybody else on the sales team. She was making the other sales team feel loss of incentive. She wasn't giving them any way of getting a return because she was just excelling past them in sales. The owner of the company was infatuated with a super salesperson, and the people that were not selling as much, he was kind of resenting. Why can't you be like this person? Why can't everybody be like this person? And it was interesting because I had learned that. I said, what's the downside of the overworker? The one that's really knocking out the sales. And he said, well, there's no downside. She's massive. She's making all the fortune here. I said, but you're reliant on her. What happens if all of a sudden she got sick, or she all of a sudden left, or something happened with her? Well, then you don't have a team really effort. I said, maybe it'd be wise to find the downsides. And then we looked for the downsides, and we found out that she was secretly having an affair with one of the people in the company, one of the partners in the company. And then we realized that if all of a sudden we allow that, we're now setting a precedent. And he started to calm down his infatuation with the girl and realizing he was vulnerable. And the partner, if he goes and knocks down this lady that's the super salesperson, he ends up having the partner upset with him. So he's now caught because they've broken the rules of the game. So he basically found the drawbacks, and then he basically found the benefits of the other team, and he asked the lady that was the super salesperson, to train the other ones just to make sure they didn't depend on her, because the other ones are disincentivized. Well, when he brought this one down a bit and this one up a bit, and confronted the idea about the affair, and asked the partner to make sure that he didn't undermine the company by having this affair, stop the affair, brought these things back into balance, the overall productivity from all of them went up, and the reliance on that one person calmed down. So they didn't lose any business, but what they did is instead of it being concentrated in one person and not being productive in the other ones, and having infatuation, resentments, they now had a balance. Anything you infatuate with occupies space and time in your mind and makes it hard to sleep at night. Anything you resent occupies space and time in your mind, has it hard to sleep at night. So your mind is distracted by these polarities, and by you neutralizing the polarities. That's one of the reasons I tell people to come to the breakthrough experience. In the breakthrough experience, I show people how to neutralize those polarities of infatuation, resentments, and prides and shames. Because you get infatuous with somebody or resentful to somebody, you can minimize or exaggerate yourself, and you fear the loss or you fear the gain of those people. And therefore, the world externally runs your business and you instead of you. But by bringing them into balance and having a poised state of mind and living by your highest priority and making sure that people are engaged, you reduce the volatilities in the teamwork in the business. The way you build teams is very simple. Have a common thread, a common focus, and help engage people by making sure you hire people. They're inspired to do the particular job description, a high engagement level. The more engaged they are and the higher the priority that they're living and the more they're fulfilled in their job, because nobody goes to work for the sake of a company, they go to work to fulfill their highest values. The more they do, the more stable it is, the less volatiles, the less infatuation, resentments, the less distractions, the less occupations at night, the more poised you are, the less bored or burnout you become, and the less distracted you are by management and micromanagement of people. So take the time to calm down any infatuations and resentments and bring them back into balance. Because if you get infatuated, you'll actually be blind to the downsides you're overlooking. If you get resentful, you'll be blind to the upsides. Balance the equation. That's why I teach the DeMartini method in the breakthrough experience, to show people how to transcend those outer distractions in a business and stabilize and manage it. As Buffett says, until you can manage money, until you can manage your emotions, don't expect to manage money. And Robert Greene says, until you can manage your emotions, don't expect to be a leader. It's the management of emotions and having an executive function that governs and moderates and dampens the emotional polarities that allow you to master your business and build your teams. Because the teams on the outside, inside your company, are an expression of all the parts on the inside that you've integrated because you now know how to manage your own mind. Governmentis means one who can govern their own mind. So give yourself permission to prioritize your life and get people prioritizing theirs. Don't get infatuated or resentful with people and get distracted by it. That's why I tell people to come to the breakthrough experience, because in the breakthrough experience, you learn the method on how to live by priority, how to transcend the polarities of judgment, how to integrate those pairs of opposites, and how to manage yourself and manage the people around you. That way you can build great teams that build great productivity and great profits. Just wanted to share those few moments because I think that that's an understanding the dynamics at work and understanding pairs of opposites important. So anything you see in the company that you infatuate with or resent, within the people and the teams of the company, look for their opposites. If you infatuate with one, you'll be guaranteed to be upset and resent with the others. Calm down the infatuation, calm up the resentment, bring them back into balance. When you can see the balance and the order inside the teams, you can bring order to the teams. It is amazing. It's a game of internal perception. When you perceive the order, you can bring the order. Until you can perceive the order, you won't. And you won't perceive the order, you'll have disorder, which means missing information when you're infatuated or resentful to people in the teams. So make sure you hire people according to, when you hire people, know what their highest values are and make sure the job description's matching it and make sure the mission of the company is helping them get what they want, or otherwise they're not going to be focused. And if they're not focused, and you're going to have more volatilities. And if you're not able to focus because you don't have people to delegate that are competent, you'll be distracted, you'll be in your amygdala, you'll be emotional, you won't manage your teams. The teams will give you symptoms. The purpose of the team's volatilities and reactions are feedback mechanisms to guide you back to authenticity and to live by your highest values and to delegate lower priority things to people that are high on their values. So they're engaged, you're prioritized, they're prioritized, you're productive, they're productive, to master and to maximize the profitability and the productivity and the meaningfulness in your job. So I just want to take that time to go over that. So join me at the Breakthrough Experience to be able to show you how to do this, and I look forward to seeing you.